Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. Josh, good morning. How are you on this fine last week of May?
I'm well. We've got thunderstorms projected all week, and I love rain. We don't get it as often in Idaho, so I always enjoy it when we get it, and I'm very thrilled. It looks like... Oh, go ahead.
Are you just ignoring the Dallas Stars?
Yeah, I am. I don't want to talk about anything related to Western Conference Championships, whether that's basketball or hockey.
That's right. Oh, man. That's tough.
It was ugly last night in the Stars. Like,
wait, can you tell me what happened? Because I want to talk about this in the context of disc golf too. Where fans were like throwing stuff off the second deck.
Yeah. So, player gets hit, like, basically, like, you know, a hockey fight breaks out, right? It's a cross-checking penalty. Fight breaks out. He gets a 10-minute major. Dallas Stars fans are livid at just how bad the team's playing, so they just throw a lot of crap on the ice. And there was only 30 seconds left, and so the time in the second period, so the time it would take to clean the ice and get everything removed would be a good 15 minutes or so, especially if like beverages had spilled as they were thrown and they needed to like actually scrape the ice. And so I guess I've never seen this happen before, but they just called the end of the period and ended it 30 seconds early so that they could then just in the intermission clean the ice like they were planning.
And I heard like fans in the lower deck were getting hit by beers that people were throwing off the top deck.
I'm sure that was the case.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was. And like, I mean, Ottinger gets pulled in the first period. He's been rough this playoff. It was Jamie Benn. What did Jamie Benn do? Jamie Benn gets ejected, and it was for fighting and putting somebody into the player's box and fighting in the bench, like just nightmare top to bottom. Like, you couldn't have asked for a worse performance in I think, must-win Game 3. So, jeez. Yeah, at least my ECHL team is up 2-0. The Idaho Steelheads, they're my last hope at a championship this year.
You think we're going to have some kind of like fan brawl situation in disc golf? I don't really think we are, but
I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever heard of that happening in golf. The craziest thing that's ever happened in disc golf in recent memory is just Nico getting in the face of the rules official. Yeah.
I could see a disc golfer like getting in the face of a fan,
like Shooter McGavin, with, losing it in
like a fan after missed. Yeah. like imagine if a player was following around on like a Nico card and 3 holes in a row Nico misses a putt and he just goes like doink, or just like harassing him after he misses the putt every
You had to
time.
wait 60 seconds for that, Nico?
That's right. You don't have to yell it. You just got to say it just loud enough. And I think somebody would totally get in the face of a fan if that happened enough and we're having a bad enough round.
Oh, man. Well, what we got another silver event coming up this weekend, the Cascade Challenge in Washington. We're going to talk about the course and the field, not the strongest silver field, maybe the weakest of the year, I think, which makes sense. It's 100 miles north of Portland. It's kind of a drive out of the way to go play it. So we will break that all down. Josh, you may notice I'm not in my usual digs.
You're not.
And I'm not on my usual microphone.
Where are you at?
I am in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
Technically Mason, Ohio for the locals out there. And the Ultimate Frisbee College National Championships start on Friday.
Oh, okay. And this is the D1?
This is Division 1, yes.
Okay. So it's a big one. All right. So who are the favorites? Who do I need to root for? Which games do I need to watch?
So, okay, here's the deal. Okay. You can watch, Josh, you'll be able to watch games, no problem. We'll get you set up with the right subscription. If you're an Ultra-World Disc Golf subscriber and you have a mini subscription, you could choose to upgrade for the month in order to be able to watch a lot of the games including our NFL Red Zone style combo stream where we cover 4 games at once on one stream.
This is what I'm watching this week.
There you go. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, we're streaming 5 games per round. And the favorites, the number 1 seed in both divisions is the University of North Carolina. They have both won back-to-back national titles in 2021 and 2022. So they're going for the three-peat, and they are not only are they the 1 seed, but they're pretty strongly the favorite, I would say, particularly in the women's division, where the team is just, it's ridiculous. So now, Josh, I know you don't want to root for the outright favorite. So you got to give me your criteria. No. I know we kind of go through this, but you want a team that's going to compete, but what else do you want in your...
I like flashy and high scoring because I don't follow Ultimate enough to appreciate the nuances.
No, we're not going to go through the nuances. No.
Yeah, I want a flashy team that's just going to be entertaining to watch, who is like one that you look at and you're like, you know what I want, Charlie? I want the Florida Panthers of Ultimate. You're like, who invited you again? And they're like, I don't know, but like, we're about to go to the Cup, so that's what I'm looking for.
All right, I would give you, in the men's division, I'm going to give you Texas, the University of Texas.
Okay.
Tough is their team name. Yeah, they're the 9 seed. Okay. They have a lot of athleticism. They're going to take shots. They're going to make huge plays, and they're definitely underdogs. But they've showed flashes that they could be a really good team. Now they're in a tough pool, which means you're going to get bang for your buck because they're going to have to play against Colorado, their regional rival, and Pittsburgh, both very good teams, the 4 and the 5 seed in their pool. So those will be a lot of fun. On the women's side, let's see. I'm probably going to suggest UBC. UBC is the 3 seed. They're one of only 3 teams that I think has a realistic chance to win the championship. But they're like still like significant underdogs to UNC. But they have like so much of the top, college age talent from Canada on their team, and just some awesome players. They're going to cut huge D's, big hucks. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a really good college championship this year. So I highly encourage people to check it out. You can watch some games for free on YouTube. And then we will have all of the games in the Ultiworld subscription. And you can always just upgrade your subscription for 1 month if you want to watch additional games. And all the details, of course, on ultiworld.com.
I'll be throwing up that Red Zone stream for sure. That sounds like the best way to watch it.
Field Pass, it's called. So it's a lot of fun. We debuted that last year in September and have used it twice, and so this will be the first time it's coming to the college championships.
Sweet.
Yeah. We've got like wireless cameras to go to additional games in case something's close late. It's a lot of fun. We had some awesome finishes down the stretch last year. Okay, back to disc golf. Let's talk before we get to the Cascade Challenge preview. We were actually going to talk about this on Tuesday and kind of ran out of time. Josh, I think it would be cool to just take a second and look at the season so far and who's won, and just like a high level overview of what we've seen so far. Because, even though it feels like we have some players who have like been clearly dominant players, Christian Tatar, Calvin Heimberg, it's not like they have won everything. In fact, there have been 13 different players to win on tour so far this season. That's comparable to what we saw last year, which was kind of like a big step up from the past. You go back 5 years and there were only 4 winners in, an MPO. It was like Paul, Ricky, Eagle, and then some random person. But now we're seeing more and more different winners on tour. And so let me just run down the names real quick. And obviously everybody knows this, but I think it's cool to hear it said out loud. Katrina, Kristen, Paige, Sayananda, Kat Murch, Jen Allen. Those are your FPO winners. On the MPO side, of course, Calvin, Kyle Klein, Gannon Burr, Simon Lizotte, Isaac Robinson, Emerson Keith, and Eagle McMahon. And I think what's particularly interesting, Josh, is if we look back at the last 4 winners in the last 4 tournaments, we've had no repeats.
Champions Cup.
No repeats since Champions Cup.
Yeah.
And pretty interesting stories along the way. Like in FPO, Kristen Tatar gets revenge not only on, Paige, I guess, but on the Champions Cup course and the one that she missed out on last year. So, and just dominance. Jonesboro, Kat Murch, she's on here. She gets the feature on Jomez. It's like this really emotional week because she had played so well at Champions Cup, and then she comes out and wins and like lets out the primal roar. So awesome. And then Paige Pierce is like, "Hey, everybody who says I don't have it anymore and I don't care anymore, you're wrong." And then she dominates at OTB to make it a three-peat, by the way. And then Jen Allen wins her first tour event after like 25 years of playing on tour. The storylines are amazing this year.
Yeah, no, they absolutely are. And the things that stand out to me on the FPO side, twofold. Number one, at the beginning of the year, I said that I thought Kristen, Paige, and Katrina were going to dominate on the Elite Series. And that has proved to be true, largely. Kat Murch is the only winner to win on the Elite Series thus far who is not named Paige, Kristen, or Kat. Or Katrina. I should specify Katrina because Kat Murch wins Jonesboro. But what's remarkable to me is when you look at the silver events and the stories like you talked about that kind of come in with that, and you include Sayananda and Jen Allen with kind of the Kat Murch stories, I think you begin to see kind of the two things really stand out to me. Number one, you see some of the young players and talent on the FPO side who are developing as well. While this is a constant storyline in MPO because they're winning regularly, I think these are the kind of results. And when you look at the snapshot of the beginning of the season, that's what shows you the growth of some players as young players as they grow into the sport. And the starting of silver events is where that begins, right? And that's where you see that talent that otherwise can be overshadowed by some top level players. And number two, though, is that as disc golf continues to grow, the people who were older and are at this point older in the sport are still viable contenders. Katrina, Kristen, Paige, I mean, they're all older relative to, the MPO side. That's a little bit of a different story when you go through the age range of those players who have won thus far. But on the FPO side, it is still and then Jen Allen, of course, right? That range of ages of the winners on the FPO side, I think is so remarkable and is giving us a good kind of snapshot about where the FPO game is. And the answer is that it's anybody could win. It's no restriction on just, it has to be young talents in their athletic prime between the ages of 21 and 27. There is a wide range of players who can and are able to win, who have a diverse set of skill sets that are all showing us the remarkable development of the FPO game. And that's an exciting time in disc golf, in my opinion, because it by showing us that, it's not the case of, oh, well, this player, they're in their 30s, like, don't expect them to win anymore. They're 18. Don't expect them to win. There's no way you can say that about any sense in the FPO division because of just how diverse the talent pool is. And it makes the FPO division, as we've said a lot, this year, we said it a lot last year. The FPO is such compelling golf to watch. It's so much fun to watch. And there are many tournaments where the FPO side is a more compelling storyline than on the MPO side. And that's just so exciting to be a part of.
I think, you look at the last 4 tournaments in MPO, and it's also pretty interesting because you go back to Champions Cup. Isaac Robinson gets the win, right? He's playing out of his mind. He's in his home state. It's like he's for real. I think it was feeling a little bit like, okay, Isaac Robinson's a good player, but maybe, it was a little flash in the panty last year, but not so. not so. I mean, it's clear that he's got the potential to come out here and win regularly. And then Calvin Heimberg goes back-to-back at Jonesboro, continuing his fantastic season. Emerson Keith wins for the first time in his career at the OTB Open on a course that, like, how is that the one that he wins on? But, you know, again, showing us that when he's healthy, he remains a very credible threat. And by the way, the fact that Emerson Keith is able to do what he does with the stature that he has is pretty amazing. There just really aren't players built like him that are successful on tour. Mm-hmm. So that was a cool storyline. And then, of course, Eagle wins at Beaver State. Now, you know, Eagle winning is not exactly a surprise, but it is still the first win of his season. And perhaps that's a springboard for him. You know, it's still so early, Josh. Like, yeah. Eagle could just rip off like 3 or 4 wins in the next couple months and be at the top of the Player of the Year conversation. Like, that's not out of the question.
Well, on the MPO side, we have 4 majors, we have 4 playoff events, and the Pro Tour Championship, all of which, except for one major, have yet to happen yet. Like, we
right.
think about all the golf that has been played, but relative to the real, like, the significant things of the season, Champions Cup's it. That's the only thing we've seen thus far that really represent one of the top tier of the most important events as they're defined by the Tour and the PDGA. And so you're absolutely right. And the Eagles' one silver event is in no way, I mean, it's easy to say, well, look, Eagle hasn't won enough. He hasn't had that good of a season. But are you telling me that if he wins Portland and European Open again, and I don't know, MVP, like, that's not Player of the Year profile started? Like,
yeah, I mean, he's going to have to pick it up on the consistency side of things to get past Calvin, I think. But it's not, you know, there's so much season left.
Yes.
Like, is there any player who, if they just got really hot, couldn't win Player of the Year at this point? Ricky could still do it. He hasn't even played. But if he wins 2 majors and another 2 tournaments, I'm not saying that's likely, but I'm saying that it's possible.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it feels like we're through a lot of the year, but we still have many months of disc golf.
Calvin has the nice advantage of having 2 tournaments ahead of other people on the Elite Series. But that is not enough to lock down a Player of the Year.
No, certainly not yet.
And often you need a major in order for it to happen. And I hope he plays better at the majors. But
even Macbeth, who is skipping all of these events coming up for his European swing, which begins not this weekend, but the following. And by the way, he's going to play like 9 straight weeks of disc golf. Even he has a chance. You know, if he comes out, if he like rips through and wins almost all those European events, he's expected to, so that wouldn't be that interesting. But if he wins European Open, then you're like, okay, Macbeth is back.
Is Macbeth playing PCS Sula?
I assume so, but let me check. Yes, he is.
And that's an Elite Series this year.
That is an Elite Series.
So if Macbeth wins PCS Sula, I mean, that's probably going to be a little bit more difficult of a field. But if Macbeth wins PCS Sula and European Open, right back in it. I think if that happens, assuming Calvin does not win, how many events do we have before the European swing? We have a couple left, right?
Well, we have Portland.
Yep.
And is DDO before? I think it is.
No, it's after.
It's after. I got to look at the schedule.
Wait. No, it is before. It is before. I saw Nokia open, and I was like, oh, Nokia. It's,
we have Zootown and DDO and
Des Moines. And Preserve. Wow. We have a lot. We got a while.
And Kansas City wide open. It feels like it's like European Open is coming up, but really it's not until the middle of July. Like, we have some time.
I think it's because Paul is playing in Europe, and so I'm like, oh, and like he must be close.
He's just skipping a lot of tournaments.
If Paul wins PCS Sula and European Open, I think Calvin needs to be at 4 wins in order to stay as the front runner for player of the year.
No, I mean, I don't know.
He's at
Josh.
2. So give him one more win. He's at 3. If Paul does an Elite Series and a major,
I know, but Calvin has played better all of this time than Paul. Like
major
months of playing more consistently than Paul. I don't think just winning 2 events is going to be enough for me to put him in front, even if one of those is a major.
I mean, we'd have to see.
But I mean, Calvin has been so good week in and week out in a way that Paul has not. I mean, Paul has been finishing outside the top 10.
That's true.
Anyway, more to come. We will we'll get a chance to start breaking that all down. And Portland is coming up, and that's going to be a big one. No Macbeth, but pretty much everybody else. Elite Plus, extra points on the line, all that. But first, the Cascade Challenge. We're going to talk about this new event on tour and a new course on tour next.
Pound's the best of the best. It's the quality, the craftsmanship, the vision for what a bag could be. Let's start from the beginning. I didn't choose Pound, I chose Levi. I trusted Levi to make the best bag possible.
He's always trying to innovate. He wants it to be perfect. And I think he's the kind of guy that nothing's ever perfect.
I trust the product. I trust the people behind the product.
At this point, I don't think anyone's disputing that it's the best made bag.
Welcome back to the Upshot. Before we get to the Cascade Challenge, it's time for a quick segment of the 30-second rule, where we get 30 seconds to discuss each topic, and if we go over, it doesn't matter. Josh, take it away.
Yeah, first up, Big Germ wins the Japan Open. It was an unsanctioned event this year, so we pulled this information from Statmando's Instagram. It is his first win in Asia, and now means that Big Germ has won on 4 continents with this win. Impressive feat.
Very impressive. And he dominated Manabu Kajiyama, 1050 rated, top rated player in the world, Manabu Kajiyama. And, I've seen some people kind of dunking on Manabu, but I'm like, it's not his fault that the rating is inflated in Japan. He's a great player. He's just not at the level of what it's saying that he is. And so, yeah, congrats to Germ. That's a very cool thing. If I'm Germ, I'm now like, okay, how do I catch them all?
Right.
Is there a disc golf course on Antarctica? I think you can put it in a little temp course. Germ flies down to, the bottom of Argentina, takes the boat across, plays a little 9-hole C tier, gets the dub over like the scientists in Antarctica. I mean, that's what I would do.
Germ's like, you name your price. I will pay you to play in this event. I just need a couple of you. That's funny. Second story on 30-second rule. Now, I want to preface this. This is a post that we pulled from Reddit. It comes from Disc Golf Fanatic.
The prolific Reddit poster.
Prolific Reddit poster, and oftentimes, I mean, Disc Golf Fanatic is on top of disc golf news.
It's crazy.
It's really impressive. Now, this post was followed up by a very clear meme post later on, but this is what we believe is the original, and we think it was actually posted by Simon Lizotte. It is no longer on his Instagram. It's on an Instagram story, so it's no longer available to be seen. But
so that is to say, we haven't personally witnessed that this was on his Instagram, but we believe this to be accurate and from his Instagram.
It reads, disc golf needs more Mandos. I used to hate Mandos and thought it was poor course design, but the reality is that we don't have a real disc golf course that was built just for disc golf yet. Until then, we need more Mandos and get rid of all drop zones. If you miss the Mando, play it where it lies with a stroke penalty. Also, all OB should be hazard. Equals better game. Think about it.
Think about it. I like the conspiratorial tone of this post. Okay, so Simon's concept is we need more Mandos, and you should you should always play it from where it lies, regardless of where your disc ends up. I mean, presumably, like, you still have to have some OB, like water still got to be like actual OB where you have to step off your meter.
Sure.
But Okay, here's what I'll say.
Okay.
I'm with Simon on the Mando point. Part of the issue is that these players are so smart and are creative and think of crazy ways to attack holes like that. I forget now which player it was. Was it James Proctor who was like throwing into the opposite fairway in order to then attack the green from over the tree line? You got to give him credit. That's really smart.
Right.
But I also think that goes against the design concept of the hole. And so then therefore maybe you need to use Mandos to prevent that kind of thing. So I'm okay with that because Mandos sort of require a certain shot or I guess restrict a line you don't want. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of play around with where you put that Mando because maybe you're like, well, okay, you want to throw an insane Sky Annie? That's cool. But you have to throw it over here. You can't take this easy option. You have to get more, distance out in front to get past the Mando. And then you sort of create that challenge. I think the idea of OB all being hazard and that like you should always play it from where it lies. What I'll say is that I do think that having more courses where OB is more natural, as in that is to say, there isn't an actual stringed off OB line, but rather that, if you get off the fairway, you're probably going to lose a stroke. I like that. And I like when there's also opportunity for scrambled type shots when you're out of position. Part of the problem with OB is that it dulls the creativity in a major way, right? In a way that a Mando can sort of like prevent people from taking a kind of like a cheater line. Mm-hmm. OB tends to reduce the hole to the same thing all the time. Whereas like if you're if you're at W.R. Jackson and you're out of position off the fairway and you're in the woods, you're probably going to have a really difficult scramble shot, but being able to actually throw from over there and execute makes it really interesting. If you just get brought back to the fairway by the OB line all the time, then we're just going to see the same shots over and over, and there's no real opportunity to make a correction after making a mistake. You make your mistake and you're instantly brutally punished with a stroke. Versus being like, okay, like maybe you should pitch out, but maybe you want to get aggressive and try something crazy. And maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But I like that element is there, and there's just not that many disc golf courses where that's an option. But there's no way that we could make all OB lines hazard. A lot of times you need an OB line because it's trying to keep people safe, or it's like there's side-by-side fairways, or, whatever the reason may be. But I think the principle that Simon is talking about here is that, like, let players throw their shots. And I actually agree with the principle, even though I don't necessarily agree with the, like, exact way that he's describing this.
It's interesting because I actually think the hazard change does accomplish that. Because in the case of OB, as you said, the problem is that you get the brutal punish and then it's pulled to the middle. But in the case of hazard, it's not pulled to the middle. It's just you take the punishment and then you do have to play from a different position.
But then you're getting it's like double jeopardy. Like if I shank it horribly, that's a different, and I'm way out of position, and I lose a stroke because it's hazard, and then I also have to play from over there. That seems like worse than just having it not be OB at all.
Okay, and see that's a little bit, I think, different. But I'm considering, and we haven't seen a ton of courses yet in this case, but think of courses especially like that rely heavily on OB, like let's say like Lake Eureka, for example. If Lake Eureka instituted more Mandos, because the problem I actually have with Simon's argument is that courses that heavily depend on OB, which we know he's not a fan of, if at Lake Eureka you just took a hazard stroke, so many holes you could just play over and intentionally take the stroke and cut off 2/3 of the hole by just shooting the gap and taking the hazard stroke, and still guarantee yourself at least a par. And so I think that my problem with that argument is that for holes that depend, or for courses that depend on OB, which, whether I agree with you, I think natural OB is the far superior method of building disc golf courses. But for those courses that do depend on OB, they create very fundamental structures around the way of how do players attack that hole. And it serves as, in a sense, as a Mando with the sense of risk reward of if you go OB and don't get back in, it's going to bring you back. And you have to consider that when you're making the decision, not just, oh, I'll throw it up. And if I just take the stroke, I take the stroke.
Right. Well, and that's, Simon talking about drop zones. It's like a lot of times drop zones, it's like, okay, so you took a super aggressive line. You went out of bounds super early and it never came back. Normally that would be punishing because you would have to then throw again from very close to the tee pad. But instead with a drop zone, it's like, okay, now I go over here and I get up and down from my par.
Interesting. I think of drop zones in a different sense of like to make the hole harder where you can't just throw to only cross OB, like where you're like, okay, if I stick it and then I make the albatross.
Depends
great.
on the hole. Depends on the hole.
Depends on the hole. Right? It's used both ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, interesting. Simon's stirring the pot, and I think it's good to have players talking about these kinds of course design concepts. They talk about it amongst themselves. I think it would be nice if they talked about it more publicly like this, because I think it can help us improve the game. And I think we're already seeing that starting to happen with course changes this year on tour. Anyway, that was definitely more than 30 seconds. So stopwatch, click off.
No penalty. Who's going to call us?
Nobody. Are you calling it?
I'm not calling
it. I don't want to call it. I'm not trying to make enemies on the card.
That's right. I've got to do this again next week with you, Charlie.
Okay, on we go to the Cascade Challenge. It's going to be played at Shelton Springs in Washington. Shelton Springs, 4.43 star review average on Disc Golf Course Review, 4.6 on UDisc, 4.43 on DGCR is a nice score. It's probably like top 50 on the website. Definitely top 100.
Yeah.
It's 8,219 foot par 61 for MPO, 7,285 foot par 61 for FPO. And we're going to break down all 18 holes right now with the hole maps. And here we go. Hole number. I'm kidding. Josh, this should be interesting, because this has been widely considered one of, if not the best course in Washington for quite some time. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about the fact that this was going to be at Shelton Springs, and I was on the air like, what is Shelton Springs like? Or I think we were in the Discord. Yeah. And Steve actually posted and said that Shelton Springs is the best course in the state of Washington. Fair wooded holes that will challenge pros, although someone may shred. The local club has put a lot of effort into recently cleaning it up and redesigning some holes. That said, it is more of a local course. Parking is going to be a challenge. There's not really any on-course amenities. It's not going to be a permanent tour location. Kayak Point, where this tournament was originally scheduled to be held, has the most potential in Washington. Amazing property, pro shop, new tap room, ample parking, but the whole design isn't quite there yet. And there was some sort of financial disagreement with, the tour wanted to have the tournament there, and I think Kayak Point wanted a lot of money for it to happen there, and they couldn't come to terms. So now we're at Shelton Springs. But it sounds like it's going to be a good course, wooded, and should be cool to see the pros play it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the one concern that I have is that on UDisc, you often will see when you look at course reviews, and Steve highlights to this a little bit, right? It's a local course, and that it's wooded, and there are some really good holes. I think the pros are probably going to tear this course up.
So it looks like you think they're going to shred.
I think they're going to shred, and the reason I say that, and I would have to go look at the disc golf, the course reviews. Oftentimes on UDisc, you will see players, especially newer or amateur players, who will give poor ratings because courses are too difficult. Now, they may have some good layouts that kind of accommodate that, but I know one of the local courses here in Idaho is it's up in the mountains. My favorite course. It's on a cross country ski course. It's brutally difficult. The fairway's perfectly cleaned because they're groomed and run all winter and summer long. So the fairways are perfect. But if you go off the fairways, you are just in death. I mean, it is so dense and so easy to lose discs. And so beginners will go out, they'll play 3 holes, they'll lose 3 discs in 3 holes.
1 star.
And then they'll go on U-disc and they'll just say 1 star, too hard, like need to clean up the rough kind of stuff. And so I think that if this course is such a like popular course, that means it's popular among the ranges.
Shreddable incoming.
I think the pros are going to tear this course up. It's pretty short as well. And I mean, even wooded courses these days we see extending, think Champions Cup and Northwood. Both are incredibly long and wooded courses. And so being wooded is not enough anymore to stop the pros from just absolutely tearing this up.
So the field is a little thinner this week than usual, particularly in FPO. Top 3 rated players in FPO in the field are Holland Handley, Ella Hansen, and Kat Murch. So no Paige, no Kristen, no Owen, no Katrina. A great opportunity, of course, for Holland or Ella to get their first tour win. Can Kat Murch get another one? Jessica Weiss, Sayananda, Emily Beach, Lisa Fakis also in the field. Still a lot of good players, but missing the top end of the division. Over in MPO, Eagle is the top-rated player. Ganneber, Ricky Wysocki, Kyle Klein, Anthony Barella rounds out your top 5. So no Calvin, of course, no Paul. He's over in Europe. Still, again, same kind of thing. Lots of good players, but missing the top end. Feels like maybe this is like a Ricky weekend, potentially. Like, could this be Ricky comeback weekend, get a win? I don't know.
Maybe. Tricky Ricky scrambling through the woods.
Yeah. So, it should be fun to see how it plays out. And I don't necessarily have much more to say about the course. We kind of looked at the caddy book, but a lot of trees, not much to see. And so, I think it's nice to see a natural wooded course on tour. It's very flat also, which I think suggests perhaps the shreddability here. But, a lot of people say it requires a lot of different shots. So we'll probably see, turnover backhands and forehands and Anheuser shots and all that stuff. So that I like. I like a course that requires a lot of different stuff.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, shreddable, I think that probably means that maybe the long term, this isn't going to be the permanent home of the Washington Tour tournament, right? I mean, I know Kayak Point was the preference for the reasons.
Kayak Point, they're going to figure it out, right?
They're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. But that doesn't mean I'm not excited to watch a wooded course. I love my woods. This is going to be great. So it should be fun to watch.
So Josh, who are you taking this weekend? It's a silver. So we pick our winners.
Well, look, I'm going to take the man who has never lost a silver event in his career. I'm going to take Mr. Eagle McMahon. They say so jokingly, but Eagle has been playing, and we talked a little bit about it on Tuesday. But it's worth remembering just how good Eagle has been in this past stretch with the blip of OTB, right? Second at Champions Cup, second at Jonesboro, first at Beaver State. You cut out the 55th at OTB, and I mean, that's the best stretch of anybody on tour in that stretch. And so I really like, Isaac Robinson probably has the better stretch, but Eagle's got a great stretch of golf, and Eagle is one who we know wins back-to-back-to-back tournaments sometimes. There are some players like, Kristen after winning Champions Cup where we talked about, well, this feels like a prime weekend that we should have seen Kristen falling off. Eagle is one who doesn't really seem to have that same fall off. And granted, stakes are different from Champions Cup to Beaver State Fling, but Eagle often comes in, and when he gets rolling, winning isn't something that just lets him take the foot off the gas. So I've got Eagle to win it for this weekend on the MPO side.
I'm going to take the Woods Whisperer, Isaac Robinson.
Best record on tour since Champions Cup.
Crazy. and just, his precision off the tee at Champions Cup makes me feel really good about picking him here. If he can keep it up and, continue to be able to throw long distances with accuracy with fairway drivers and mids, like Isaac Robinson is as formidable as anybody out there.
Yes, he is.
By the way, but Josh, I just want to point out to you that you're picking Eagle now to win on wooded courses, which the old memes are dead.
Yes. Well, but I was the one who tried to kill them.
Yes,
I was the one who always said
right.
the eagle playing in woods is a load of crap. So I'm just like doubling down. Now that I've gotten people to like get rid of those memes, I'm just like pushing us further. Give me 2 years. Everyone's going to be like, wow, Woods Whisperer Eagle McMahon.
I'm on the FPO side, I'm going to take Cat Merch. And I think I'm fairly confident that one of the top 3 players in rating is going to win this tournament. Holland, Ella, Cat. I absolutely think that this is the chance for a Holland or an Ella to win, but I don't think the course setup is perfect for them. And I think Cat Merch is probably a little bit better suited to succeeding out here. And so she's my pick.
I think if you were to do odds, even though Cat is not the highest rated player, I think Cat Merch is probably the odds on favorite at this tournament.
Okay. Well, here's a question.
Okay.
What do you think with that? Before we look, UDisc win probabilities for those 3 players are.
Okay. Oh, can I know what is their total percentage between the 3 of them?
Oh, sure. I'll give you that.
Okay.
60%.
60%. Okay. I would put Cat Merch at 30. I'm just going to say 31.
Okay.
So Cat Merch 31. I'm going to give Holland 18.
Okay.
And I give Ella 11. I think that's the math.
I mean, you're not way off. Holland is the clear favorite per UDisc.
Oh.
30% win percentage, with Ella and Kat both coming in at 15%. And then Sayananda, Rachel Turton, who had a nice showing last weekend. Coming over from the UK. And Jessica Weiss at 8%, 7%, and 7% respectively.
Interesting. The Rachel Turton part surprises me.
Yeah. I don't know where the UDisc data is coming from Rachel Turton, if it's just from last weekend. 'Cause I don't think she's played that many UDisc tracked events. Because the way these win probabilities work is it looks at not only the player and their skill level, but also like how they're going to play on each individual hole. So, it's calling Holland as kind of the clear favorite, but not overwhelmingly so at just 30%.
Sure. Interesting. Well, it's a good thing I'm picking Holland to win then. So that's my FPO pick.
By the way, you're picking it. Oh, sorry. Continue. You're picking Holland.
No, you're fine. I'll be quick. I'm taking Holland. Look, I think that I like the Cat Merch pick a lot, but Holland has been so close so many times that
she's been the best of the 3 this season overall, I think.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it to Holland. Anyway, what were you going to say?
I was going to say on the MPO side that Ricky, Eagle, and Gannon are all dead equal at 17% win percentage. Kyle Klein at 9%, Isaac Robinson at 7%.
I feel like it's a little disrespectful to Isaac Robinson.
Disrespectful. I mean, if you could, I always say this, like if I could get like 11-1 odds on Isaac, I'm putting some chips in, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. I like Nicholas for this course as well.
How about James Proctor? Maybe this is the way. This would be a great spot for James Proctor to get a dub.
Oh yeah, it would.
Pacific Northwest boy.
That's right.
All right, so those are our picks. We got an over/under, Josh. You're talking about shreddability. We got to do a shreddability.
Well, I have a. I mean, we could do shreddability. I don't know how to pick. I mean, this caddy book is it's literally trees, and that's no fault. I think it's gonna be a good course, but the caddy book has a hard time representing, I think, the difficulty and shape of these holes. Here's my over under. Holland Handley over under 50% win probability after, we'll say after round, let's do round 1. After round 1, We check the UDisc win probability. Does Holland have 50% or more? She's at 30 now.
I'm going under. I mean, because I think Kat Mertz is going to win. So
that's true. You could think that Holland has the lead after round 1 and then chokes it away in round 3.
I could, but I'm not going to choose that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm taking the under. All right. Remember, you can get your picks in over at discgolf.ultihero.com/upshot-picks if you're a subscriber. And we will look forward to chatting with you again next week right here on the Upshot.